All right. So figure P3-23 is a metric part, and when you upload or download the file, it should come into your SolidWorks as a metric piece. So if you're going to machine out of the part, you'll change it over to inches. All right, and then that'll adjust the units. So I'm going to go back in. I've been saving these as a separate so that I can get back to it. All right, so 3-23, and it's showing millimeters, grams, and seconds. And the best is just going to be to tell it inch, pounds. And when we go Control 7 for the isometric, that's the orientation, same as the pretty picture we were just looking at.
Can you go back to the picture for a second?
Sure.
I noticed the dimension for the slot, it says the radius is R.
Yeah, so you're 12 inches or 12 millimeters on the thickness, and so it's full radius at each end.
Oh,
so 6 millimeter.
Okay.
Yeah, just full radius.
Never seen that.
So I mean that kind of is one of the reasons I chose this part, is it being at the angle, it's going to present a little bit of a challenge. So some of the things that we would do on fixturing is I might take depending on how deep this is, because I haven't put it in with the vise or the plate, and that's still kind of an option. This is a fixed datum, so I could put that up against the fixed jaw of the vise and get a piece of material in here to close up on, and still have something that will minimize the amount of vibration on this overhanging angle. So looking at it from my first operation, well, I'm gonna stay with putting this over in the assembly, so I'm not modifying the original piece. It gives me more what if scenarios. If I decide I like it, then I keep it. If otherwise, I can go to the next level with it. So I'm going to do the assembly inch and pick the project. I'm going to go ahead and bring it in. Well, I do want to rotate it into at least the orientation for the first part. So rotating about X, and then we'll see if it'll jump origin to origin. No. Still didn't quite do what I was expecting it to do there. So I'm going to float it, and then no, I really didn't want to see those, so I'm not sure what I told it to do there. So front plane of the assembly, front plane of the part, and go coincident. Would really like to have that turned around, so right-clicking and flipping the mate alignment. And we'll get it back into to shape. Let's go to the top and coincident, and then we'll just kind of pick up the origin. Yeah, pretty much on that edge, coincident. All right. So when I go isometric, that makes a little more sense to me, and I'll build the stock around it. So going into the top-down assembly, rule is, or the recommendation is, that you save. And so save. There we go. And this was assembly 1, so P3-23. And we'll save that back. All right, so now when I go to the new part and start to lay out for the stock, assembly, insert components. Under that, we'll do the new part, and I like to just pick, and we'll rename. And this is again our virtual component that when I edit this in the context of the assembly, my part is going to go to transparent, and we're able to sketch. Let's go back into the top plane, and I'll open up a sketch, and we'll give this a basic stock size. All right, so not knowing exactly what we're dealing with, 3 inches. Let's see, 3 1/4 makes it a little bit close. As big a chunk of aluminum, I'm not going to want to, let's try to be at a standard size, but not go too crazy with the oversize, leaving plenty of material. So that being the case, maybe we'll just go with a couple of construction lines, and I don't think I made that for construction, so Okay, so there's one. Center line. Find the midpoint. Yeah, we'll go with midpoints. That's fine. Okay, so since it's an odd shape, what I'm looking for is to center this over my stock size. So I can set those two to equal and those two to equal. All right, so pretty much, if we stay pretty close to the 3 3¼ then that'll be beyond size. So features extrude, we'll go up 2 inches. All right, so that takes care of about the 50 millimeters. Then the issue is what kind of stock am I going to have at the base? Might be able to find 2 1/4, but more than likely it's going to be 2 1/2 on the thickness. So that would be one we'd have to. Oh, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to give it direction 2. So when I turn on direction 2 and tell it to go to blind to 1/2 inch, that'll be the stock that's in the vise. Right, so when I'm looking at these other operations, that's something I'm going to have to consider is what am I doing with that material and how am I going to get rid of it. So let's go that way. And we'll expand out, make the stock transparent. And looking at that, I might be better off to try and generate the geometry around the outside, or sorry, around the top in this orientation, and then start whittling away material from the other side. So, questions. So that being the case, we'll go back in, edit, and maybe I did want to just go with the 2 1/2, so that everything is on the in that direction. All right, so clearing out for the edge, we would end up with that radius. I'm going to say that in this part, we want that to be a sharp, whatever is going to clear, and what that forces you to do is have another setup. So we got to think through the process of, if I cut all of this and I have the angle, then can I hold on to it here and get this way, and what do I use for orientation and direction? And then when I flip over and start to remove that material, am I going to have enough rigidity on this piece to keep this perpendicular and decent finishes? All right, so one of the things that we haven't done in a while is, if this is going to be my first machining orientation, I do want that up against the fixed jaw anyway, we're going to go to the space bar and save a view. And so I will call this for my setup 1. All right, so I can get back to that view relatively easy. All right, so setting this up, we'll go into, let's see, need the add-ins. Nope, need to be in the add-ins. And I did not launch, so HSM. Okay, so we have the cam. And so the first job will be on that stock and that orientation. All right, so new job, and don't need the boss extrude for the stock to be part of the machine definition. We're going to go from solid, and the solid can be the stock that we're going to remove. Face that we're going to machine from is our Z, and then the X direction will be along this back edge, and the point for my origin will be at that corner, but then I need to reverse or unreverse X so that I have the correct direction. And then program name is 1, and we'll give this a setup 1. All right, so whatever for the name, if you want to give a little more description. And then the question is, are we going to have multiple work offsets? So when we have the discussion of how many, we kind of chose a rough stock size, will be close, and then the how many If we're running one, I'm not so concerned about work offsets. If we're running a bunch of these, then I probably want to start accumulating work offsets. So this could be work off 0 or 1, which would both generate G54s in your coordinate systems inside of the program. Then when we come around and set up for 2, we would be looking at a work offset of 2, so we had a G55. And what that would do is if we use the probe method of touching off, when I run my 50 parts and get everything blanked out to begin with, then when I flip it over and go to the next work offset, or rotate it and go to the next work offset, I'm at G50. Then I go to G55, from G54 to G55. And then the next one would be over to G56. So I could have all of those stored in the machine, so at some point, we lost one, we scrapped it, got damaged, whatever. Then I can go right back to that program. It still has the work offsets. The tools still know where they're at. We run another one, run it back through the process. We haven't lost all the setup time. So that's a possibility. It sounds good in theory. So we'll see how it plays out. All right. So the next thing is I don't really want to run this notch out. Decision is, do I go for the angle? Yeah, probably. But the other advantage of being in the assembly is that we went transparent. Well, I can also hide the stock. And then on this face, I'm going to open up a sketch. And let's see, I did not pick right. So get my orientation back. And inside of this sketch, I want to lie to it and pretty much say that I'm going to not worry about the corner. But I do want to, that reminds me, I do want to cut the angle so that vertical comes off. And then I can push pull, maybe, back to the vertex. Really, you didn't go coincident that way. Oh, okay. You go coincident that way as well. All right. So that sketch from the top of the part will get me a contour, and then I would have to tell it to stock bottom, or I can pick this up. So let's see. I'm going to call this the contour, and we'll just give it a perimeter. Or if I want to stay with my depths, not have to change that depth value. Usually about this time after I've made the sketch is when I realize, well, I really should have just put the sketch on the bottom. All right, so editing that sketch plane sends it down to where I can select that contour and then tell it to go another 50 thousandths. All right, so if I was trying to cut this with a 1/2 inch end mill with a 2 inch length of cut, I'm going to be right there on size. I'm probably not going to have enough reach, and I really don't have enough rigidity to keep these faces perpendicular enough for our tolerances. So 3/4 inch end mill, 3 inch length of cut, 2.5 to 3 inch length of cut, much more rigidity, and even if I have to take a spring pass, I'm going to be ahead of the game there. So, all right, so new operation is going to be the 2D milling. We're going to set this up as a contour. And then one of the things that I'll do is, as far as speed, we set up our Haas library, but I did not include a 3/4 inch end mill. I want to say that these are loaded in the carousel, or they're loaded in the tool changer. So before I get too far into my first contour, I'm going to go back to the tool library and say, these tools are in the machine. I do not want to disrupt them. I don't want to change them out. So 2.3 is current. I'm going to paste those in, even though I may not be using all of them or any of them. But they're there and they're holding their place in the station numbers in the carousel. All right, so now when I go back, I guess could have done it there. We'll go find a flat end mill, 3/4 inch, and copy it. And I don't really want to make it part of the library, so I haven't assigned it yet. we're going to go to tool 5, 3/4 inch end mill, cutter length. And then it's always kind of interesting, let's go up an inch, 5, body length, said 3-inch length of cut, so 2.6. We'll add, hopefully add some dimensions to all of these and see where it barks at me. Shoulder length, all right, so maybe 3.6. All right, so those look pretty good. And then the feeds and speeds. If we're running this on the light duty machine, then 4,000 RPM would still be pretty good, and 20 to 25 inches a minute. 2,000ths per tooth on a 3 flute. That's about right. And I will update so that we have consistent numbers across, and then I can adjust as needed. All right, so that's now in the library. We'll go back and pick up that new operation, 2D milling, 2D contour. Set up for the library. Pick tool 5 that we just created. Comes in with my numbers, and it always is kind of annoying that it goes to 0.99, but that will be 4,000 when we post, hopefully. Model now is, instead of the geometry, we're going to pick the sketch, but if I pick a line in the sketch, it's just going to find that line. I want to go to the flyout, come down to the contour perimeter that I created, make sure that my arrow is on the correct side to cut. So we're finding that that direction. This is going to be pretty deep as it goes through the angle, and I may even end up with a little bit of a tower there. All right, so that would be a concern. So 0.9, 0.1, we want to go a little bit past, and it's right there at my recording time, so we'll see how it does. So let's go 10 thousandths past. And make sure it got in there. All right, so this is going to be a roughing pass, and then we'll go back for finish pass. So the end computer is fine. Pretty much the extension, no, still looking for that one. We want to do stock to leave, and for that kind of length, we'll go 10 thousandths, and that may be a little on the large side, but 0 on the depth. And then, let's see, no lift height. Leading can be fairly small because I'm going to tell it to ramp. And I don't want to get too aggressive on this, but the down feed then would be 5 degrees or 0.1. And let's go a little bit closer to the top of the part so we don't have to see it make a full revolution to get engaged into the part. All right, so advantage of the ramp is that it starts at the top, starts the pass. It'll probably engage the part back over on this side, and then this is one continuous path all the way through the material. So if I change this back to shown, I'll get a pretty good sense with that operation how much is going to be left. So just kind of a little bit of a tower would expect on the simulation in that corner. All right, so question is it enough that I can break it off, cut it off, or have to take it over the bandsaw? So stock simulation, oh, that was way too quick. So we're still doing the drilling and tapping from last week. So I'll back it up. All right, way too slow. All right, but it's going to stay loaded and engaged in the part. And as opposed to step down a 1/4 inch, run around, step down a 1/4 inch, the advantage here is that it's not doing any rapids in between. It's not having to do those retracts. And then looking at the sliver over here, I'm not worried about it. All right, it's not enough to be projectile or cause too much in the way of problems. All right, so what I didn't do was the facing operation. We'd probably take that same 3/4 inch end mill, run the face. All right, so this is going to be job 1 or setup 1, depending on how you want to name them. Name the jobs as they make sense, and I think I mentioned that I'm going to do a couple of operations in each, but I also want to give you the opportunity to think of how you would do this and go through the steps. So you're going to add the facing operation. You're going to generate this other geometry. All right, so that puts us into a situation where I probably need to do something to get rid of this material on the backside so that I have a piece that's on size with the stock. So as I'm cutting the rest of the material and the cutouts, then yeah, we're probably to where we can hold on to here, and I still am going to do that notch as a separate operation. So let's go ahead and set up the next job. And we said that that's about a 1/2 inch material, so I could take a little deeper cut on this side as long as I'm holding on whatever it is. I'm going to raise the parallels up enough that I have material left to cut. All right, so the assumption is my worst case scenario, I'm a 1/2 inch above the part. I want to make that my clearance and retract planes so that I don't impact those, or I don't hit those. And then really the only thing that I'm finishing once I clean up, the only thing that I'm really going to finish is the top of this to bring it into size. All right, but I need to get rid of all of that material. All right, so we're going to hide that one back. And we can pretty much hide the sketch. All right, and let's see. So that material is still there. The issue is going to be finding a usable place to touch off, right? Because I could put a 1, 2, 3 block in, but with this being at an angle, I don't really have anything to hit a workshop set. So let's see. I put this into the vise this way. It wouldn't pain me too much to have a work offset on this side. I would prefer to have them all on the same side. So maybe that is where I go back to the first one and say, if we're going to set up on the right and I flip this over and have to keep the same datum, then I will change the first job to also be on the right so that they maintain work offset, flips over, picks up the exact same location, or at least don't have to move the work offset. All right, so that being the case, let's go back to the S1. And then this is still all on stock, so get that back in place, edit it, and then the point for the selected point becomes the opposite side. So that still looks good. It's a little bit strange, but I have a valid reason for doing it. All right, so the next job, I said we were going to go back, and I needed that temporarily. I'm going to hide it. And so then I need, I like to call them targets, but you know, again, terminology that makes sense to you. So on this face, I need a 0, 0, 0 out here somewhere that I can pick up. But I don't want it too high, I don't want it too low. So this is going to be a sketch. And then we'll go normal 2, control 8. And my target is typically a circle with a couple of lines. So that denotes where we're at on location and my X and Y directions. And might as well make it fully defined, so a 1/2 inch circle will work well there. I'll go ahead and accept it. So this is the stock, I'm sorry, the target. I had stock on the brain, target for S2. All right, so now it's floating out there where I can get to it, and will be reasonable to come back on that second setup and get a little more precise than the rough cut stock that we started in setup 1. All right, and then if we, again, if we had to go back to setup 1, then that is going to be more precise than what setup 1 needed, because we have that overhang of material. All right, so setting up for the new job. We're still not cutting the stock. We're going to go from solid though, and the solid is, it's going to show me the bodies. It'll pick up the stock, that's fine. and then the direction, even though we've removed some of that, we'll go with the plane, and then I'll just use the target and the point to get my my orientation. And then this is program 2, and we had the part number P3-23, and this can be set up too. And then I want the same work offset. Probably not. The values would be the same. So what I was saying earlier, the numbers will be real similar. But then when I stop and think about it, because I have a different Z height because of stepping down that ½ inch, or manipulating the face, I probably should go ahead and make this a 2, which would bump it up to G55. All right, if I decide I don't need it, it's easy enough to change this number and repost. And then I can stay in G54 for setup 1 and setup 2. All right, we're going to see how far I get into this before I really paint us into a corner. All right, so job S2, I'm going to single click again, and then S2. And then this one we'll just do the facing operation. And I will leave, well, let's see if we do. No, I'm not gonna hang you guys out that bad. So, all right. So still with the same tool. Flood coolant is on. Stock contours default. Take out all the material. And then here's where the retract is going to become in a little more critical. So we're at 1 inch. And I don't know that we need to manipulate that much. Retract height and the feed height, 0.5 and 0.5. So worst case, I won't be wrapping into that material that's there. It may feed, it may be out here close enough that it will try to feed into that that stock. And then the other 0.8, well, we can adjust that number as we need. So this is going to be a fairly aggressive. I think the 3/4 inch end mill will handle it even at the extended length of cut, because we're going to take the same tool and be removing material out of the center. So if I can get away with it, not have to do the tool change, we'll go ahead and plow that material off and then take the face. So the choice is on the bottom: do I raise it up 10 thousandths here for cleanup, or do I do it in the stock? Whichever way, be consistent at it. So if you're going to use the stock, stay with the stock. So stock to leave, not concerned about the, well, there is no wall. And we'll put 10 thousandths on the floor to raise it up. Engagement wise, we're at 90% step over. That's a little on the aggressive side for 25 thousandths, or for a ½ inch cut on a 3/4 inch end mill. So I don't know what that number is. So I'm going to go back to the default. We'll go half, and then bump it up from there. All right. So half of the 3/4 gives me 3/8, and then the extension, I want a little more extension, and the extension on the stock, maybe a little bit more there as well. Make sure that we're going to clean up for that material that we left on the overhang, and then it can go both ways. Let's see, keep tool down, maximum stay down distance, lead in entry, would like that to be a little bit longer, so let's give it a generous amount, and then I can always pull it back in, and we'll see what it looks like. All right, so I'm far enough off the stock, comes in, takes the passes, and goes back up. So the issue is kind of on this angle. As we get narrower and narrow, I have more and more of an overhang. This is going to be a flopping, chattering, kind of nasty cut because there's no material backing it. So in that case, if I can reverse the direction, which should be here somewhere, So past direction angle, let's just switch that around 180 degrees. And it's showing me the arrow back and forth in that direction. But now we're starting, or was it correct the first time? Because that still looks, it didn't do exactly what I wanted it to do. All right, so we'll go back and check the 0 thing, and I will double check that I wasn't. I was reading it wrong. All right, red going in, comes across, comes back, so now this will be supported. All right, so we're getting thinner as we go, and this last little bit will not be a thin overhang. All right, so operator error.
How is that being held in your
So at this point, I'm holding on this lower surface because we finished to this face, and this block is continuous all the way across to this angle, or to this 90 degree.
Oh.
So I'm not on just this piece. We're going to take this out as a separate operation. All right. So then the choices, we have 1 inch and 3/8 on the depth, and I don't know, kind of back and forth on that one. Let's see if we can do it with the adaptive clearing. Problem that I see with the 2D adaptive, I don't really want to do a pocket going in and starting on the outside. I'd rather have the adaptive clearing make the multiple passes. The other option would be to select this face and have it generate contour that would come across at that angle, but I would also end up cutting quite a bit of air as, oops, let's go to that side, as it's still going to follow this contour all the way down until it gets fully engaged in the part. All right, so that being the case, we're going to try the 2D adaptive. So 2D milling, 2D adaptive clearing. We're not really ready to jump into the 3D adaptive. 3D adaptive would probably, unless we set the depth correctly, would probably try to go ahead and make the cut into the notch as well. So we're going to try the 2D adaptive first, and then if that fails, we'll go over to the 3D. All right, so model, and let's see, we're machining the cavities. Stock contours were by default, so we'll see what it generates. Stock height, that should all be good from contour. I think this is going to be a problem, but if I have to, I'll go make another sketch. 300 thousandths engagement, 1 3/8 deep, not likely. 100 thousandths at most, and to be on the cautious side, we'll start at 50. So it's taking a lighter cut, but I'm getting that full use of the flutes on the end mill. And then stock to leave, yeah, we'll probably leave the 20 thousandths. One of the things about this shorter is it's going to, with the tool deflection, it's going to leave a pretty good pattern in this face. Let's see what else. And then the helix, if it can't get into the material. All right, see what it generates. How far it tries to go around, or it fails. All right, so it doesn't really tell you that it failed. It just tells you none. You did not complete the operation. All right, so that being the case, there's too much for it to calculate based on that stock. So I'm going to go in with the sketch, and we're going to convert it in entity. Let's see, I want to come off some distance. And we'll open that up enough that it can find its way through. That'll be horizontal. I don't know that I need the full width of the end mill, but at least the radius of the end mill plus. So we'll try the 0.4s. Oh, and there's that interesting, I don't know where I'm placing the dimension, but it will go somewhere, especially after I give it. And this one, let's go with the 0.75, and I'll see if I can pull it in later. Mainly I'm looking that there'll be enough in here to plunge, and even if it takes those couple extra air passes, I think it'll still get engaged in the part sooner. And then again, I can always kind of taper that down as long as there's enough room for it to plunge the end mill. So we'll do this as a step. Well, the caps are on, that's fine. So the operation is still there, it's still in place, except now we're going to clear out the selections for the model. Always want to kind of grab those lines, but it's going to be the sketch. And let's see if it'll do a little bit better with that. Alright, so it wanted to go into the middle, and it made an interesting plunge, so I didn't quite get it far enough out here to plunge in the material and take steps. But I can't say that I'm entirely, that I'm entirely disappointed with the result. If we can make that plunge and come around, that's still pretty decent. The rapids, as it calculates to those ends, and the rapids, no, those are feedbacks into the next level. So the only thing I'd probably do here is make sure that this is enough that it's not going to leave the nub, but with 20 thousandths left on the floor to clean up, probably still call that good. Alright, so I'm going to duplicate that, and then the step over amount, that original number that we had for the step over around 0.7, we'll stay with that, and we'll turn off the stock to leave. So the danger there is that there's 20 thousandths of material. I probably should clean up the floor first and then take a couple passes as a contour, making sure that I can control how much material I'm leaving or taking off on that face. Alright, so maybe we'll drop that down to 10 thousandths, which I think should be manageable. Okay, that was way more aggressive than I expected. So let's see what number I actually put in there. It wanted the 0.7, so still pretty aggressive, not too much in the way of overlap. So let's make it closer to the radius with the shape. Okay, couple passes and feeds out. Does one kind of strange move, but I'm okay with that. And then the last one will be to set up the contour.
You could do a lot more aggressive that helix going down.
Oh, on the face, yeah, we could take the ramp off altogether.
Yeah.
It's just that last little bit of plunge. Alright, so in the wear, then the last one, let's hide the sketch. We'll pick the lower edge. Make sure that I have enough clearance. So 0.3, we'll turn the 90 degrees off and go ahead and give it another 0.3. Alright, so again, kind of guessing at those numbers, but staying close to the radius of the tool. And then, hello, I did. Nope, I guess I didn't. I turned something off and then I didn't tell it. No propagation, so it goes along the face. Make sure the arrow is on the correct side. Come back in on that face. Oh, so let's see, on job setup 1, we were over here. Said that you're going to pick up the other one, so you're going to do the facing operation and you'll do the drill operation in that setup. Pretty much should be okay with this group here. We'll pull it up and simulate it real quick. So run the whole thing. So yeah, move off the half-inch of material, goes to the face. That's kind of a screamer on this side. But then as it makes the nudges, and the first time that you run the adaptive clearing or any of the high-speed machining cuts, it's probably better to leave the pass. Let's see, what do they call that?
Did you see what happened? It left quite
A corner?
a corner.
I got a scallop.
Yeah, on the right side.
Okay. No, I didn't catch that, but it doesn't surprise me. So let's see. That was one. All right. So edit, and then we're going to go back over to the planes, and from stock top, then from stock top the retract height. All right, so we still want it to retract at least. So let's go with the minus 1.3 and see if that will wrap it to the plane. As long as it comes back up to the top to do any of the movements. And actually, that doesn't seem like it went deep enough. Okay, so I'm not sure we're from stock top. Didn't think it was that. So if that's the contour is the cutting plane. I think I told it was that deep. Okay, now I don't remember what I told it was measured. Alright, so ramp, couple of helixes, and I don't see anything rapid-wise that, as long as it jumps up, gets above the top of the part, make the next cut. Alright, so why was it leaving the scallop? Alright, so over here, we got that little bit, and we've got that little bit. So we're back over to the sketch. And if I have to add a little bit, we'll add a little bit. And since we're adding a little bit, let's add a little bit more here and see what that does to the, and we'll rebuild. Come back over to the geometry. Now we have to tell it to generate the toolpaths. Now I can leave the facing operation, that's fine. 80%. Alright, that was kind of what I was looking for anyway. So it is taking, we've removed that material. It's not following that contour, so it's able to come across. There may be one or two passes in here that are cutting air, and then we'll still be in that face. So did I bring it out far enough? It looks like the end radius is just past, so may have gotten it close. That one looks pretty cool too. All right, so the simulation comes back to run the material off of the face. Oh, I didn't come back with a contour to clean up that top edge. I like that a lot better than even messing with the helix. But if we needed it tighter for whatever reason, getting into that pocket, would be able to. So it still left a little bit there. So yeah, still just a little bit. So that I would put on the contour. So there's a little bit of a jog line on the contour coming in straight. And either I did not give it enough of the extension.
Oh, the angle there.
So there is this, let's see, where is it at? Cutting radius, overlap, no. Probably by the leads. Alright, so safe distance, keep tool down. Well, let's make this a little bit larger as well. Take my best guess at it. Yeah, it's still coming in on that ramp, so I don't know that it entirely picked it up. So in that case, we'll stock simulate. on just the operation, and it will look like a really aggressive cut. And if we were only running that operation, it would be. And it still left a little bit. So we're closer, but then again, that stock's not there. We've already cut that off. So better to be safe and have a little bit extra in there, than find out the hard way. All right, so next operation, we'll come in this way and remove the material off the face. So next target will be on this face. Let's go normal 2 and kind of lost, so I'm going to do the Alt arrow to rotate around, and maybe not that far. Oops, now I'm just getting button happy. All right, so got the sketch. I'm going to pick up the corner that I should be able to measure to. We're back in that. Now, I didn't quite get it. I do want this surface up against the fixed jaw of the vise, but I'm not staying with my right work offset. So the first couple operations may be in one vise. Maybe I have a second vise set up with a left so that I can get this one. Not perfect, but we got to get something started and see what the process is, so that we can refine it, make it a little better. Okay, so this is the target for setup 3. No, now I'm in caps. Oh, that's funny. All right. So one thing is that job S2 is in bold. That is where the current operation, or the operation, is going to be put into that current folder when we set up for the next job. And that process, we'll take that one out. Let's just go for relative size box, and the plane will be the top. We'll pick up the edge. The origin will be the point that I created, and we'll set for the reverse. So apparently, when I told it to make the defaults, that reverse was checked when I came down here and make all default. It made the reverse the default. So may have to go back and update that. Oh, gotta turn those caps lock off. All right, so if I needed to go that route, then that becomes G56, work offset 3. Now this one will be, this job will be set up to in bold, and anything that's being added will be added to that job. If I needed to go back to setup 1 and I was going to go back and add the face, I can do Shift D or right click and, well, always have to look for it. No, that was Control. Oh, make default folder. So whatever is selected, that is the default folder, that is the active folder. All right, and then we may group up for different tools for various reasons. So when we start making subfolders underneath the job, we can also make that folder or the job the active folder. So that one's going to confuse me, so that would be a good time to hide. We have a face that we can pick up and go in on that edge, and so this will just be, yeah, let's just go with the contour. Staying with the same tool, and our selection will be along this face. No tangent, no propagate along Z, reverse the direction. Height, and then from contour will be at 0. So got enough clearances. Yeah, let's go ahead and turn the wear on so that last operation, that finish operation, is there. And instead of doing repeat finish passes and multiple finish passes, we'll set it for roughing passes. Let's see, 0.7, still really thick. If we stay in that same vein, you know, if we're, I don't know, can I measure it from here? I don't believe for a second that is a length of 0.591. So let's go with the 50 thousandths cuts, and we'll staying on the engagement. And what is it asking for? Maximum step over. is greater than the roughing step over. No, we're not repeating there. Oh, well, that would be finish passes. All right, see if that one's it. All right, so that wants the finish pass, and then let's try 8 of those. It's probably going to require more. And then lead-ins, we need to extend out again. So 0.3, 0, 0.3. All right, so again, taking a guess as to what it's going to look like once we actually get the operation in place. So up, over. Probably need to work on that retract a little bit, or telling it to keep the tool down. So let's double check. As long as it's not coming back through the material, but definitely did not get it far enough out. All right, and then let's check for the contour from top. That's okay. Stock, contour, cutting plane. All right, so retract between. Rapid retract. Let's not keep the tool down. All right, so in, over, out, and let's see if I get a different number this time. 1.575. All right, so again, we're at that point where either I have a block or I have something in here to help stabilize that edge as I'm taking that depth cut. And if it comes down to it, I may have to split that into a little over 3/4, not quite 0.8. But we make that decision as we get the parts running and see what the cutting conditions actually are. So I may need another contour to come in to finish. I don't think I told it to leave any stock, but we'll check real quick. We may leave enough stock to come back and pick it up. Oh, come on. Yeah, no stock to leave at this point. So, all right. So last one is, what do I want to touch off on? So if we're putting, well, let's get out of that, and we can hide the target. All right, so if we're putting this in the vise and I have enough, like I said, I could grab a piece of stock and put underneath. We've already generated the majority of this geometry. All right, so all we're really doing is putting the slot in. I just need something to touch off on, find an edge. So if this edge is sharp, then we're back to the right side, but I don't really have a clean stop. Just going to have to pick one and get set for the angle. So if I'm setting this down on a piece of material that's flat, and it can sit on top of the vise jaw, even though I'm extending up, this would be a really good spot, by the way, to import that vise model and get this in position to see if that's even going to be feasible. Is there too much length here? If the vise contacts here and I have a piece of inch aluminum stock to sandwich in between, I can keep this fairly rigid to run that last slot operation. All right, so let's go ahead with the pick. I don't really need a target. I might go ahead and put it in to stay consistent. But we're going to set up for the new job. That can go away. We'll go with the relative size box. Pick the plane as the face, the edge, and then same thing, we're back on that. Well, that wouldn't pick the origin, but we're back on that corner. And mainly I would like to, if I'm going to pick, I'd rather pick on this overhang than have it be down on the angle. Right, so that seems fairly close. And typically the slot, whatever's writing in here, this is going to be an open enough tolerance that I'm not as concerned for hitting it exact on the position. You know, at least in the X direction here. Y will be accurate because we're touching off on that face. It's set. And so program name, we're up to 4. Okay, you can type. And then we'll go up to 4. So that's now the current job. We'll give it the name. And then one thing to watch out for, we set this up as a 12 millimeter, so a radius of 6 millimeters. I can't just take a 1/2 inch and go through there at 472. Right, so if I have a reground tool, so the thing to watch out for, or the question to ask is there enough clearance that I could get away with that 30 thousandths and drop a 1/2 inch tool in there, or am I going to have to take a 7/16 and go in 30 thousandths lower and then go back? So I'd like to run the slot operation, but the thing with the slot operation, unless it's changed drastically in the last bit, is let's go with the 3/8 just to not have to add another tool right now. And we'll pick the slot geometry. And for once it did not populate. There we go. So the drills, we're going to pick the faces to be able to determine sizes. Contours, most all the rest of the operations will go with edges or sketch geometry. All right, so retract height and bottom of contour, maybe a little bit past 0.01. Let's see, that needed to be a negative. Oh, wow, and I just scroll wheeled myself into a mess. So model top. All right, so watch the scroll wheel, and that did go to -10 thousandths before I did all of that. Slot, multiple depths, no. And it's going to ask for the lead-in profile, and so we'll go up to maybe 10 degrees. Maximum ramp step down, well, I don't want it to do it in one, that's for sure, so maybe 100 thousandths and 100 thousandths above the part. And whatever the tool size is, it's going to walk this back and forth and basically just ramp into the material. It's not going to find, if I put a 7/16 in there, if I put a 12 millimeter end mill in there, or a reground 1/2 inch to 472, it would walk into that geometry back and forth and cut through the part. So that just gives the ability then to go back to a contour. And there's still, so we were at 3/8, so there's still a 1/16 of material on each wall. That's a little bit on the heavy side, so 2D mill. We'll stay with the contour. Pick the geometry, make sure we're going the right direction. That -10 thousandths. And we'll set it for wear.
You took a trench down the middle of that, and now you can go back and further.
Yeah. And it may be that it would be better just to do the contour and open it up with the one tool rather than doing the two operations, or one operation rather than two operations. So those look reasonable. We'll set the ramp again. So these haven't been picked, so 0.1. And then the advantage, I did not give it. Okay, so we're back to that fun little, let's go to a very small lead in and a very small, so I think it went to 10%. We're going to go smaller than that so that it can get into that material. Still not small enough. So I told it 50,000. I did tell it 50 thousandths on that one. I needed that to be 5 thousandths. Right? Because it's starting at the top of the part and ramping in, I really don't care how big or small the lead in is. All I got to do is get it off the wall. And one more check, because that still seemed a little on the aggressive side, is that I'm telling it to repeat the finish passes and let it go around one more time. Make sure it cleans up. All right, so kind of a mess. It should be fun. Try to have fun with it. Put in a couple more operations here and there, think through the process. But this will give you enough of the operations and the technique for setting up the jobs. And again, if you needed to go back to job setup 1, do the Shift and D, or right click and select Make Default, so that whatever you're adding is being added where you are expecting it to go. All right. So facing operation, there's probably a few operations that you can add in here, but that'll take care of the majority of it.